Chambers be open. On ouvre les portes. Déclaration des députés, statements by members. Alors,
order.
L'honorable député de Joliette.
The honourable member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, we all know what it's like to have an old car that's a bit of a clunker but still gets us to work every morning. Then one day we learn that we're going to have to spend thousands on repairs. But nobody spends that money. We just invest the minimum that we need to get to work in the morning, and then we look to the future and we invest in something sustainable. But the government is doing just the opposite when it comes to fossil fuels. Environmental groups believe that Canada has given $3.3 billion in subsidies to fossil energies since in 2015. These subsidies to industries of the past need to end. The government promised to do this, but only in 2024. While the government is waxing poetic on the international stage, it's heading full speed into the wall when it comes to climate change. As long as Canada refuses to plan for a fossil-free future, it will continue to stand in the way of Quebec and all states engaged in the fight against global warming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Yarmouth this past Sunday, the Canadian Mixed Curling Championship kicked off, welcoming to southwestern Nova Scotia amazing curling teams representing each province and territory in Canada. Les matchs se poursuivent tout au long de la semaine.
This will be continuing throughout the week. And it is with great pleasure that I will be attending the final on this Saturday, November 19th.
Excellent week, and I am sure they will enjoy the hospitality and charm of Yarmouth and Acadian shores, with its world-class seafood, beautiful coastline, and friendly people. Thank you to President Rick Allwright and the rest of the 2017 Canadian Host Committee and your team of over 140 dedicated volunteers. Your hard work has resulted in another successful major event in Yarmouth. We are proud of our community's great reputation for hosting such events. Finally, to the competitors at the Mariner Centre this week, have fun and good curling.
The honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to the good work of the Canadian Food Grains Bank, an organization that has been working to combat global hunger for more than 30 years. Not only does the Food Grains Bank provide nourishment for those in need, but it also works with communities to improve agricultural practices which allow for long-term and sustainable food security. This good work wouldn't be possible without a network of volunteers across this country. I think of folks like Ron and Nancy Kramer, who've been volunteering with the Thames United Church Growing Project for many years and who selflessly give their time and talents. I think of volunteers with growing projects in Moncton, Milverton, Palmerston, Drayton, and many more across Perth Wellington, across Ontario, and across Canada who grow crops so that others might eat. Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to the Canadian Food Grains Bank for all they do to achieve the goal of a world without hunger. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done. Honourable member for Davenport.
The Portuguese community, which comprises 30% of my riding of Davenport, loves a good party. And this past weekend was no exception. On Sunday, I was proud to take part in the opening ceremony of the Azorian Cultural Week that will see week-long activities celebrating the culture and the life of 9 Azorian islands, known for their natural beauty, volcanoes, whaling, religious festivals such as the Festa do Santo Cristo, and its writers like Raul Brandão, José Dias de Melo, and among many others. I also took part in 2 Festa de San Martinos at Casa da Madeira and Casa das Beras, not being able to make it to a third one at Arsenal do Minho. The Festa do San Martino is ultimately a celebration of harvest, as symbolized by the introduction of new wine and chestnuts, reminding us to appreciate and be grateful for all that we are blessed to have in our lives. I want to thank the organizers of these festivals. Their work not only enriches the social and cultural fabric of this great country, but also reminds us that we are a stronger nation because of it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, there's a new album in Quebec, and I think it's important to note how exceptionally dynamic the cultural scene is in my riding. It's something that we still see in my writing today with artists like Yves Boucard-Diouf and Kim Thuy that we often see in the streets. And tomorrow, one of our artists, Yves Beauchemin, will be receiving the La Rose de La Rochelle Prize for 2016. These are cultural things produced in my writing. And there's also the Théâtre de la Ville, which is hoping to get some funding from the federal government. Today, this House has the duty to adapt to this new technological era where people consume culture differently. We have to adapt and to ensure that future generations will be able to enjoy our culture. It's a matter of our cultural survival in Longueuil and across Canada. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Canadians from coast to coast to give generously during this holiday season. This is also an opportunity for me to mention the exemplary work of community organizations and food banks in my riding of Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. I could mention the Brunch Partage, the 27th annual community brunch that will be held on December 4th at the Centre de Service Le Relais de Boisbriand. I've always participated in this event. Organizations and food banks are key players in the Canadian social fabric, and they deliver more than 1,000 Christmas hampers in my riding alone. I invite all of my colleagues in this House to show generosity in their ridings, and I invite my fellow citizens to show generosity with various holiday fundraisers this season. These are small actions that can make a big difference in the lives of children, parents, seniors, and people who live alone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brantford Grant.
Mr. Speaker, last week during a ceremony at Rideau Hall, the Governor-General recognized 8 academic All-Canadians for their achievements both on and off the field. One of the athletes recognized was University of British Columbia swimmer and kinesiology student Rebecca Tereshko of Brantford. Rebecca made captain the University of British Columbia to another Canada West gold medal last season, winning a total of 7 medals at the event herself before leading the UBC Thunderbirds to a silver medal at the CIS Championship. In the classroom, Rebecca has maintained a grade point average of 4.17. Even more impressive, Mr. Speaker, is that Rebecca is the recipient of the Student Athlete Community Service Award in Canada West for her work providing free swimming lessons to underprivileged children from the east side of Vancouver. I know, and I speak for all Brantford Brant, when I say congratulations, Rebecca, we're proud of you.
The honourable member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, too often the people and communities of Jane and Finch are typecast as too far off the beaten path. But for those of us who live, work, or play in this wonderful community, that misinformed stereotype couldn't be more wrong. In fact, as we mark Entrepreneur Week, I cite Globe Meats, a local business that's become a true destination. That's because Globe is not your average butcher shop. In fact, Globe is what happens when a cultural institution builds a state-of-the-art facility. It is, according to its president, Dante DiBiase, a family-run business with community roots that run 40 years deep. When customers finish shopping, they make their way to the grill for a piece of wood-oven pizza, porchetta, paninis, and conversation in an atmosphere that shows just how vibrant and important our community is in Humber River Black Creek. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, education is the cornerstone of our community. This past month, I met many students at my riding. I was pleased to join the newly renamed St. Mother Teresa Catholic Academy as they celebrated the canonization of Mother Teresa along with the school's 30th anniversary. MT is located in the heart of Malvern and reflects the rich diversity of our community. The 30th anniversary celebrations brought former staff, students, and community to the school. I then took part at UNICEF Canada's Bring Your MP to School Day at Alexander Sterling Public School, Thomas L. Wells Public School, Alvin Curling Public School, and St. Bede Catholic Academy. I was moved by their knowledge, enthusiasm, and their love of country. They asked questions ranging from the environment to the budget to career advice on becoming an MP or even the next Prime Minister. In these students, we see our collective future. La jeunesse de Scarborough Rouge Park.
The youth of Scarborough Rouge Park continue to inspire me by working ever harder every day.
Inspire me to work harder each and every day, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, I was proud of the work of the former Conservative government, what it did in the area of human trafficking. In particular, I would like to acknowledge the remarkable efforts of my colleague Joy Smith for the contribution she made in this area while in Parliament, and for her continuing efforts through the Joy Smith Foundation. In addition, in the House today, I'd like to congratulate one of my constituents, Mr. Peter Warwick, on his appointment to the board at the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking and for his outstanding commitment to end human slavery in Canada. I commend Peter Warwick and the Centre for their efforts to end human trafficking and to terminate this abhorrent form of modern-day slavery and sexual exploitation. I urge all members of the House to join me in thanking them for their invaluable work and to commit to do our utmost to protect our sons and daughters from this horrific fate. Mr. Speaker, we owe it to our children to put an end to human trafficking in Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, it's that time of year again. This Saturday in my riding of Kingston and the Islands, the 13th annual Greater Kingston Santa Parade will be taking place. The community will join together for the parade and the annual tree lighting ceremony in Market Square to kick off the holiday season. But Mr. Speaker, the holidays are not always an easy time for everyone. We must remember those less fortunate and ensure that everyone in our communities can enjoy the holidays. As part of the annual Santa Parade, Kingstonians have the opportunity to come together and donate non-perishable food items to the food bank along the parade route. I encourage everyone attending the parade, and indeed all Canadians, to open their hearts and give what they can this holiday season. Let's embrace the true meaning of what this season is about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member, député de Mission-Matt.
Speaker, I stand in the House today to congratulate Anisha Gill for being chosen to represent Mission Maskey Fraser Canyon for Daughters of the Vote. This initiative, organized by Equal Voice, will bring 330 young women representing each of her ridings to Ottawa to mark the 100th anniversary of women being granted the right to vote. Anisha is a role model in the community. She attends the University of the Fraser Valley for sociology and works with the Centre for Indo-Canadian Business Studies. I am excited for Anisha to take her seat in the House of Commons and her vision for Canada. Congratulations, Anisha.
The member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, today we reflect on the life and sacrifices of Sergei Magnitsky. Sergei was a Russian lawyer, an auditor, a husband, and father of two. He is a man who believed in the rule of law, and most importantly, Sergei was not afraid to stand up for what he believed in. Sergei uncovered the largest tax fraud in Russian history and was subsequently arrested, detained, tortured, and eventually murdered by officials of the Russian government 7 years ago today. The United States and the European Union have adopted legislation to impose sanctions, visa bans, and asset freezes on those people responsible for Sergei's death, as well as other Russian human rights abusers. In May, I was proud to stand with Liberal and NDP members to announce the tabling of my bill, C-267, Canada's version of the Magnitsky Law. This legislation will provide new tools to sanction corrupt foreign officials. Despite support from his caucus, the Minister of Foreign Affairs doesn't believe these sanctions are necessary. As we remember Sergei Magnitsky today, I urge the Minister to reconsider his opposition and support Bill C-267.
The honourable member for Oakville North, Burlington.
Mr. Speaker, our community recently lost an amazing father, son, husband, friend, hockey coach, volunteer, and advocate. Tim Robertson packed more into his 58 years than most of us will in a lifetime. He lived with ALS for almost 13 years, but this horrible disease never defined Tim. We shared a love of the Boss and Bobby Orr, the Toronto Rock, Argos, Blue Jays, and the Oakville Blades. He helped in countless political campaigns, carrying signs on the back of his wheelchair. He led Tim's Titans in the Halton ALS Walk and was a tireless advocate for the ALS community. Tim, his wife Beth, and I did the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge twice. He never complained or said a bad word about anyone, and he lived with grace and dignity, the kind of person we can all aspire to be. Our heartfelt condolences to Beth and the Robertson family. We will miss you, Tim.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
The Survivor Totem Pole is a magnificent symbol of deep conviction, strength, courage, and beauty. It stands tall and proud to take its place at Pigeon Park, honoring Indigenous women and girls that did not fall victim to the worst mass murder in Canadian history. It marks the strength and resilience of those who have survived colonialism, extreme traumas, all forms of discrimination, poverty, violence, and untold hardships. It represents the strength of the human spirit and the power of all nations, united with one heart, to say that those who still face oppression are not alone in their struggle. I am so honored to have witnessed the long journey of the Survivor Totem Pole from its inception. Congratulations to everyone who have contributed to this reality, with special thanks to Bernie Williams, a powerful Indigenous woman warrior and the only female apprentice of the late Bill Reid, who led the design and carving of the pole. Her teachings and guidance also shone a light on 9 carvers who braved this journey. Together, they have planted the seed of hope for all.
The honourable member for Carleton.
In 2012, Fouad Nayel was murdered, but because the case took 4 years to come to trial, the judge ordered a stay of proceedings yesterday, allowing the accused to walk free. No trial, no justice, no closure for the family of the victim. I'm calling on the provincial and federal justice ministers to order a formal review of this catastrophic injustice, to answer questions like, why did it take 4 years? Too many legal delay tricks, administrative incompetence. Mr. Speaker, the accused does have rights, but so should victims like the Nayel family, whose son is gone and whose lives are forever torn to shreds by this odious crime and an even more odious injustice.
Honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the 20th Annual International Day of Tolerance. This day was created by the United Nations to highlight the importance of strengthening tolerance by fostering mutual understanding among cultures and peoples. This imperative lies at the core of the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as our own Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Era of rising and violent extremism, of religious and racially motivated attacks, and of widening conflicts characterized by a fundamental disregard for human life, celebrating such a day is more important than ever. Mr. Speaker, I would like to invite all parliamentarians to join with me in celebrating the International Day of Tolerance and in embracing the differences that make Canada stronger in its diversity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I have the honour to inform the House that the acting clerk of the House has received from the Chief Electoral Officer a certificate of the election and return of Mr. Motts, member for the electoral district of Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
I have the honour to present to you Mr. Glenn Motts, member for the electoral district of Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner, who has taken the oath, signed the roll, and now claims the right to take his seat. Monsieur le Président, j'ai l'honneur.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to present to you Mr. Glenn Motts, the member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner, who has taken his oath and now has the right to sit in the House.
Questions orales.
Oral questions.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, within hours of the polls closing in the U.S., the Prime Minister was offering to sacrifice the Canadian jobs that depend on our most important trade deal as a welcoming gift to the new U.S. President. NAFTA has created jobs, helped our economy grow, and provided market certainty to Canadian exporters for years. The Prime Minister's actions have caused uncertainty when we can least afford it. Two specific industries, Mr. Speaker, beef and lumber, are in the crosshairs. Why is the Prime Minister in a rush to open up NAFTA when there's so many jobs on the line?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the member opposite that the economies affected by NAFTA are going to definitely see the benefits associated with NAFTA. For example, in the United States, 9 million U.S. jobs are related to the Canadian economy. NAFTA is very important to our economic prosperity. It's very important to the middle class. And that is why we're going to engage with the new administration. That is why we're going to work with Congress. And with respect to the softwood lumber file and the beef file, these are files that we think are very important. It's a priority for us, and we're focused on solutions, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Infrastructure Minister confessed to reporters about his bank, and I quote, "Obviously, there are a lot of questions about the design of the bank, the governance of the bank, and the broad details around it, which we will be figuring out." For taxpayers, this sounds expensive. Billionaire investors won't be loaning the Liberals money out of the goodness of their hearts. They'll expect a healthy return on their investment no matter what. My question is simple. When a project goes over budget, and they many times do, will taxpayers be on the hook, yes or no?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
It's always a pleasure to talk about our historic involvement in creating more infrastructure in this country than has ever been created before. $181 billion over the next 12 years. Yes, we will have green infrastructure, social infrastructure, public transit infrastructure, rail trade corridor infrastructure, and yes, we will have a bank. And that bank will leverage more investment from the private sector, and that will create more infrastructure, which Canadians want. It will create jobs. It's good for the economy. What have they got against infrastructure?
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we don't have anything against it. We just want it to get built. We're waiting, but now we have a great opportunity before us. Keystone XL can help get our Canadian oil to the Gulf Coast, get a better price for our oil, and create badly needed jobs. But instead of proudly standing up for Canadian energy workers, the Prime Minister, who during the election claimed that he supported Keystone, he's gone silent. Why did the Prime Minister mislead energy workers?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the government did support the Keystone XL energy project, and the government will continue to support the project. All of the approvals north of the border are in place. They will not run out. And now we await the company that will reapply to the United States. We await that decision, and we are fully supportive of the project.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Boy, it's like pulling teeth.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, NAFTA is the most important trade deal for Canada. The deal is something that thousands of Canadian families depend on for their employment. Now their jobs are threatened because of the Prime Minister's naivete around free trade. He's opened the door to renegotiating NAFTA. What does he hope to get in exchange for forestry and jobs in the pork industry, the ports?
NAFTA is important for Canada, but it's also important for the United States. There are 9 million jobs in the U.S. that are directly related to the Canadian economy. That is why we're engaged with the new administration. We're going to work with Congress. We're going to make sure that we advance Canada's national interest when it comes to trade, investment, when it comes to jobs, and files around forestry and softwood and beef as well, Mr. Speaker. It has been the priority of our government to advance our economic interests, and will continue to do so.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's well documented that schools that are run by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency within the Palestinian Authority have incited terrorism against Israel. The Conservative government rightly cut UNRWA's funding because we had no assurances about where the money was going. While the Prime Minister claims to support Israel, his actions prove otherwise. How can he ensure that these dollars will not put Israeli citizens at further risk? Is it payment of Canadian tax dollars in order to get a Security Council seat?
Excuse me, order. The microphone was cut off during her question. I'm going to ask her to re-put her question, and hopefully the microphone will be on the whole time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, it's well documented that schools run by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency within the Palestinian Authority have incited terrorism against Israel. The Conservative government rightly cut UNRWA's funding because we had no assurances about where the money was going. While the Prime Minister claims to support Israel, his actions prove otherwise. How can he ensure these dollars will not put Israeli citizens at further risk? Or is this just another down payment of Canadian tax dollars to win him a UN Security Council seat?
The Honourable Minister.
Palestinian refugees are amongst the poorest and the most vulnerable, and it is my mandate to help them. This is why, after conducting meaningful oversight and negotiating an agreement that includes robust control measures, I announced today that Canada is providing $25 million in funding to UNRWA for their security and development, but also for the stability of the region. I prefer to see these children in UN schools, classrooms, than in the street.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has dropped 10 spots in the World Press Freedom Index. There are cases across the country of journalists under government surveillance. We know that a vice journalist is being threatened with jail time by the RCMP to force him to reveal a source. And all the Liberal government has to say is that they believe in freedom of the press. Well, enough with the talking points. Does the Liberal government agree to a full national public inquiry, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, when these issues first emerged, we indicated very clearly that we were disturbed by the reports with respect to the Sûreté and the Montreal police force. We inquired as to whether any activity similar to that was happening at the federal level. Both the Commissioner of the RCMP and the Director of CSIS have assured us that the answer is no. All of the safeguards that are in place at the federal level are being reassessed to make sure they're strong enough, and we are welcoming any input from journalists, lawyers, or others if they have suggestions to make about how the law needs to be improved.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
We're on the Hill today calling for a full public inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
The government has no right to spy on journalists, period. The Liberals are all talk, no action. They refused to call a public inquiry. They refused to repeal C-51. They refused to fix C-22. So what concrete steps are they going to take to protect freedom of the press in Canada?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is trying to make an argument where there isn't one. The fact of the matter is we are examining all of the federal safeguards in place, including the ministerial directives, to make sure that they are appropriate in all the circumstances to respect freedom of the press. And at the same time, we have invited journalists and others in the legal community to make submissions if they have proposals to suggest about how the law needs to be improved. Freedom of the press is a fundamental Canadian value. It's in the Charter, and this government will defend it assiduously.
The member for Outremont.
In words only, but never in action. That's the problem, Mr. Speaker. Avant l'élection.
With the election of Donald Trump, forestry workers are, like many others, very worried. The Liberals still have no new softwood lumber deal. And suddenly, the Prime Minister opens the door to renegotiating NAFTA. Where did that come from?
you have the Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Speaker, the member opposite knows that the agreement expired under the previous government. That is why we're engaged with the U.S. administration, the current administration. We're working with them and engaged with them to finding a solution on softwood. We look forward to also working with new President-elect and his administration and Congress in advancing this issue. This is a very important relationship that we take very seriously. The United States is an important ally, friend, and partner, and we'll continue to engage with them in our national interest, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Outremont.
Trump's priority. What we're trying to figure out is what are the Liberals willing to put on the table? We haven't heard a word about that, Mr. Speaker, and it doesn't bode well for softwood lumber, and it doesn't bode well for Canadian workers, because this just in, Trump is not concerned with protecting Canadian interests. How can this Prime Minister put an entire trade deal on the table before he says anything to Canadians about what he's looking for?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what we're looking for. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Good quality Canadian jobs. Jobs that will help our forestry sector. Jobs that will help
Order, order, order. It's my job to remind members. We're not to interrupt. Let's listen to we need to hear the answer to the question. The Honourable Minister of Economic Development has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the members opposite have a problem with respect to good quality Canadian jobs, because that is a priority for our government. We've been very clear from day one that we'll engage with the United States because it's a very important trading partner of ours. We're going to focus on jobs, good quality Canadian jobs, growing the economy. We're willing to deal with them on tough issues around softwood and beef. We also were the party and the government that found a solution for coal as well.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Mr. Speaker, that's what we're looking for too. Jobs, jobs, jobs. They don't have to create any full-time job. No one since they're in government. That's what we're looking for.
This morning we learned that the new U.S. President's transition team has asked for a full renegotiation of NAFTA. What bad news for Canada's forestry industry. When you talk about results,
in USA, not in Canada. How do we protect ours?
Secretary for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable colleague for his question. We're very committed on this file and have been since we first took office. We continue to negotiate with the Americans. We continue to keep up our contacts with our American counterparts. We're consulting Canada-wide to move this file forward. We will, Mr. Speaker, strike a deal, but not just any old deal. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, negotiating trade deals is a very sensitive issue. The Prime Minister has already shown his colors before the negotiations even began. It's like showing your hand at the poker table. How does he expect to be successful in negotiating a deal if he's already revealed his hand? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, our record as a government on international trade is impeccable. We found a solution. We've opened beef markets in China and Mexico. We rescued CETA at the 11th hour. We're the ones who did that, and we'll keep working. Obviously, trade deals can always be improved on after 20-odd years, so that's what we'll do with NAFTA. We'll negotiate with our American partners.
Speaker, this is not just about softwood. Canadian agriculture, specifically beef and pork exports, are being targeted as well. We fought for 10 years and we won the country of origin labeling battle. Now this Liberal government's offer to renegotiate NAFTA has given the U.S. the green light to reopen this contentious and costly issue. Mr. Speaker, when he made his offer to reopen NAFTA, did the Prime Minister realize that our beef and pork producers were the bullseye at the centre of the new President's NAFTA target?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the United States and Canada is Canada's closest friend, partner, and very important economic relationship. And I would like to inform my honourable colleague that it was not his government that resolved the coal issue. It was not his government that opened the beef market to Mexico. It was not his government that opened a lot of markets. This government is going to make sure that our agricultural sector continues to thrive in this country.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grassland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if they're so brilliant, why did they clearly did not know what the president was going to focus on. Why did they offer to negotiate even before being asked? This is the kind of ongoing failure of leadership that we've seen from this Prime Minister. Maybe it's better he keeps traveling. He seems to do less damage when he's out of the country than when he's in it. To prove that the U.S. country of origin labeling rules violated international trade law, why would this Liberal Prime Minister offer to renegotiate a trade deal when he had no clue what the Americans wanted to discuss?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the United States is our biggest trading partner, and NAFTA has been a huge success over the past 20 years. It is clear, Mr. Speaker, that with time, occasionally treaties need to be tweaked. We are prepared to do that in good faith. It is a normal part of the process. Other treaties are within the minister's mandate letter for tweaking, including a free trade agreement with Israel and with Chile. This is a normal part of the process. NAFTA has been tweaked already over the past 20 years. We'll continue to negotiate in good faith, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Carleton.
The devil is in the details, and because the infrastructure minister fears the devil, he avoids the details altogether. Of his new infrastructure bank, he said, quote, obviously there are a lot of questions about the design of the bank, the governance of the bank, and the broad details around it, which we will be figuring out. Well, he better figure it out. There are 35 billion tax dollars at risk. If the minister responsible doesn't have a clue how it will work, billionaire foreign bankers will eat him and our tax dollars for lunch. Mr. Speaker, who's protecting taxpayers?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, this government is doing something that the previous government never even dreamed or thought of doing. We are doing something which is going to be extremely important for this country, and we're going to get the details right. And what this will do, it will leverage private sector funding to build infrastructure in this country, something the previous government did not do. It will create jobs. It will be good for the economy. The private sector wants to get involved. What is so difficult to understand about that?
Now, member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, here's Liberal logic for you. You create an infrastructure bank and fund it with $15 billion that was supposed to go to municipalities. Then you make it a requirement that only projects worth $100 million or more will be approved, knowing that only 1% of projects are that big, thereby shutting out regional municipalities. It's like Liberal fundraising cocktail parties, exclusively for the richest 1/10 of 1% of the population. Mr. Speaker, is anyone on the other side of the House going to have the guts to stand up for the regions of Canada? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to stand up and remind my colleague that our fall economic update included $2 billion, $2 billion for rural communities. In addition, we are making major investments in infrastructure. With our infrastructure bank, we are going to be able to multiply and amplify the amount of investment in infrastructure. Canadians want modern infrastructure. That creates jobs, and it makes us more competitive economically.
Ellen Powell River.
In their platform, the Liberals argued that the government would use its strong credit rating and leading lending authority to meet municipalities' infrastructure needs. Mayors assumed that a government bank would lend at a lower rate to help facilitate the building of infrastructure. Yet now we find out that private investors are expecting a return in the range of 7 to 9%, which can only come through tolls and user fees. When did the Liberals say they would line their Bay Street and Wall Street friends' pockets with tolls and user fees?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I do want to point out something that the honourable member said, and that is our credit rating. It is the best in the G7, and that's a fact. That is good news. And I also want to say again that we committed an unprecedented investment in infrastructure, $182 billion over the next 12 years. This is something that our municipalities across the country have been asking for a very long time. We're the government that is acting on that. This is a solid plan for green, public transit and social infrastructure. Canadians are very pleased with our decision to invest in infrastructure.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Neigette-Témiscouata, les Basques. Would he have us believe that private sector money is going to fall from the sky with no strings attached? During the election campaign, the Liberals said, quote, interest rates are at historic lows, our current infrastructure is aging rapidly, and our economy is stuck in neutral. Now is the time to invest. The government's latest loan last month was at a very low interest rate of 1.3%. Private investors expect a return of 7 to 9%. The result, Canadians will pay 5 times more to line the pockets of Liberal cronies on Bay Street and Wall Street. Why? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, I don't know where my colleague gets his numbers from, but I will say that we are going to invest in infrastructure, $182 billion over the next 12 years. A lot of municipalities, the Canadian Federation of Municipalities, recognizes that we had an infrastructure deficit of some $600 billion, up to $1 trillion in infrastructure deficit. So we're going to invest in infrastructure. We're going to put a lot of money into it, but we're also going to use the infrastructure bank to leverage more investment. It's a good thing to do.
For more than a year, I've been asking the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, both personally and in this House, to release the KPMG financial audit on behalf of the Blood Tribe in Alberta. I keep getting the same non-answer. She makes claims about transparency, but she refuses to be transparent. What does someone actually have to do to get an answer from this minister? What hoops do my constituents have to jump through before this minister will take action? Can the minister do the right thing today and provide Kainai Nation with the financial audit results today?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
I thank the member for the question, and I hope that any member of the Kainai Nation that wants that information may approach my department, and we will get it for them.
Mr. Speaker, the message that I've been getting from a minister of the Crown is she is saying it is okay to tell First Nations leadership it's fine to break the law. The minister makes it sound so easy to get this information, and yet all anyone has to do is ask. Well, either the minister is completely oblivious to the stonewalling in her own department, or she opposes empowering community members to find out this information. Why does the minister claim to be all about transparency, and yet she refuses to let community members get access to the information they need to hold their own leadership accountable?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Speaker, it's very clear that First Nations Chief and Council are accountable to their members and to my department. If any member wants information, they can approach my department and we will help them get it.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, this minister seems to equate providing basic information to band members as demonizing leadership. Nothing could be further from the truth. Ministers are expected to post expenses. We have public accounts. The information is readily and easily available. But Charmaine Stick is now being forced to take her leadership to court in order to see the books. Why is the minister forcing Charmaine to incur court expenses to see the information that should be easily provided to all?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, members and all First Nations have the right to see the books in their First Nation. They are provided in a variety of ways. On a website, on a password-protected website, at town hall meetings, or tabled in the band office. If I believe that I cannot deal with something that's before the courts, but I do understand that there was a public meeting where the member did see that information.
Honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, people don't have to go to a public meeting to see what the minister spends in her expenses or what her department spends. It is easily accessible. It is easily available to all. She, like I, are getting hundreds of emails just in the last 2 days of Canadians who think this is wrong. Basic transparency, this is basic good governance, and it should be available to all. So when will the minister start ensuring and empowering First Nations communities and enforce the Financial Transparency Act?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear that the First Nations Transparency Act did not work because it was imposed top-down and it accidentally penalized First Nations businesses to predatory practices by competitors. So it is extraordinarily important that members have access to the statements, as do we, but it is not appropriate for it to be transparent to the whole world. This is a relationship between the First Nations and their membership.
Honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, after 2 days of raising the issue in this House, it is obvious the Liberals forgot to consider the needs of women and people living with disabilities in their expansion legislation of the Canada Pension Plan. Stakeholders and union leaders agree that C-26 is flawed because of the omission of the dropout provision for these groups. Simple fix. We are proposing changes and asking for this government's support. Instead of rushing this expansion into law, will the government take time to fix it by accepting our proposed amendments to making this right for all Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All members in this House, including our new colleague from Medicine Hat, are honoured and pleased to take part in this important debate, which signals a historic change in the way in which the CPP is going to assist not only Canadians of this generation, but Canadians of future generations. We can be proud because this is going to be leading to a more inclusive society with greater growth for now and in the future.
Member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's not all members because they've excluded women and persons with disabilities by their own purpose and intent. Now, Mr. Speaker, Liberals and Conservatives' trade and economic policies have driven the Canadian auto industry from second to 10th in the world, costing tens and thousands of jobs. For more than a year, Liberals have copied the Harper Conservatives at the expense of workers in Canada with zero results. The Liberals now have a bailout from the auto workers and Unifor, who, unlike the government, successfully negotiated $1 billion worth of new investment in Canada. The workers have done their job. When will the minister do this? And if he's looking for jobs, they're right here. Just come and get them.
Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so glad the member opposite now understands our government's priority when it comes to good quality Canadian jobs. This is a priority for us, and that is why in the budget we extended the Automotive Innovation Fund to attract investments into Canada, particularly in the auto sector, that will create jobs. We've been engaged with the auto sector, we've been engaged with the unions, and we've seen positive results because of that. Most recently, Mr. Speaker, GM Canada expanded its engineering and software development in Canada and plans to open a new software centre creating 1,000 new engineering and high-tech positions. That's creating jobs, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, next year, Canada will celebrate the 150th anniversary of Confederation. During the year, we will be celebrating our history, our achievements, and our common values, which include gender equality. Can the Minister of Status of Women inform this House how our government will promote equality in 2017?
Honourable Minister.
Well, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleague from New Brunswick Southwest for her question. Gender equality is a priority of our government.
Anniversary of Confederation, I launched a call for proposals to bring together 150 women leaders, advocates, and feminist organizations and engage them in local projects to advance gender equality. Mr. Speaker, we understand the importance of advocacy in making real progress towards equality and leave a lasting legacy for future generations. Thank you.
Honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Africa is considered to be one of the most dangerous and unstable regions in the world. A report published this week shows that terrorist groups have obtained a wide range of heavy weapons from government stockpiles throughout Africa. All the defence minister has told Canadians is that conflicts are very complex. Now, will the minister finally be honest with Canadians, tell us where our troops are going, will they be in combat, and how long will they be there?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is right. In terms of the complexity and the weapon systems of looking at of the threats that are out there, we need to take our time to making sure that we have all the necessary information, allow the military to do their analysis as well, and also do a whole of government analysis. And when we feel that we are confident with the information, we will dutifully inform the House and Canadians of where we're going and why we're going to be doing it as well, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, we're getting tired of waiting for those answers. In Afghanistan, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Armed Forces heroically fought al-Qaeda alongside our NATO allies. Today, our troops are battling ISIS and a U.S.-led coalition in Iraq. Mr. Speaker, Africa is full of al-Qaeda and ISIS terrorists, but the Liberals want our troops under UN command. Former General Rick Hillier described the UN as being unable to conduct a one-man rush to the outhouse. Why is the Defence Minister abandoning Canada's traditional allies in the war on terror? Is it only to get a seat at the UN Security Council for the Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inform the honourable member, the same allies who I consult with for the counter-ISIL meetings are the same allies that I work with on United Nations peace operations, because all the conflicts, they're actually are interlinked, and making sure that we all work together and not just look at one region of the world. They are interlinked, and we need to be able to coordinate these efforts. That's a level of conversation that we're having, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy to be able to explain in further detail in a short time, and I'll be happy to explain in person to the honourable member with the analysis that's going to be ongoing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the United Nations Works and Relief Agency was established in 1949 to support Palestinian refugees. But for years, UNRWA has been manipulated by Gaza's corrupt Hamas government in flagrant contradiction of the UN's stated policy of neutrality. Mr. Speaker, human rights organizations in Canada and abroad cite unacceptable redirection of AIDS funds and material, storage of weapons, and incitement to violence against Israel in UNRWA-operated schools. Why, Mr. Speaker, is the government committed to committing new funds to this flawed UN agency?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of International Development.
Mr. Speaker, Palestinian refugees are among the poorest and most vulnerable people in the world, and my mandate is to help them. That is why, after having made serious checks into these allegations, we issued a report with robust control mechanisms. I announced funding of $25 million for the stability of the region and for their safety. I prefer to see the children there in school instead of in the street.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals to continue their UN Security Council ambition by compromising security itself. The Minister of International Development just announced funding to UNRWA to the tune of $25 million. UNRWA is a UN organization with known ties to Hamas. Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. Is the potential to have hard-working Canadian tax dollars fund jihadist terrorists really worth the UN Security Council seat for this government? Sure no.
The Honourable Minister of International Development.
My colleague, that we have done all the necessary verifications in cooperation with our allies and UNRWA and even the Israeli government before making this decision. This funding announcement includes robust oversight mechanisms and a stronger accountability framework. This funding is crucial for the security of the region. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
The Minister of Transport's announcement last week left us hopeful for real action on abandoned vessels and wrecks. But it's now clear that the Liberal plan doesn't go nearly far enough. There's nothing to prevent abandoned vessels from becoming a hazard in the first place. Will the plan really leave taxpayers and local governments on the hook for action? Is this government really excluding any preventative measures? And why are they wasting this opportunity to clean up our coasts?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would highly encourage that my colleague across the way read what we said in the Oceans Protection Plan. because there is some very, very clear indication there with respect to derelict and abandoned vessels of a large number of initiatives that we are going to make in order to make owners accountable, also working with the provinces and territories as part of the mechanisms to clean it up, and also in the long term begin the process of cleaning up these hundreds of wrecks that are on our three coasts.
The honourable member for Saraburi-Sowa. Absolutely, there is nothing that could prevent an arrival of another wreck in Beauharnois, for example. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Minister of Transport has approved the dismantling of the Catherine Spirit last week, except that the $7.9 million contract to build the embankment around it is going to Groupe Saint-Pierre, the same company that had to stop the dismantling work 5 years ago because it had neither the expertise nor a certificate of authorization. The Catherine Spirit has already cost taxpayers $4 million. Will the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans confirm to the citizens in my riding that the Groupe Saint-Pierre now has the expertise needed to get the job done? Honourable Minister of Transport. Of course, Mr. Speaker, the reason that we chose Groupe Saint-Pierre is because we absolutely want to get rid of the Catherine Spirit as quickly as possible. It's been there for 5 years. It's time to act. It wasn't done under the previous government, so we're going to do it. $7.9 million to build an embankment in order to isolate the ship from the St. Lawrence. And then in the spring, after a call for tenders, we will dismantle the ship.
Bill Creek.
President-elect Trump has made the development of $50 trillion worth of natural resources a top priority. But here in Canada, the Liberals are going in the opposite direction. Wood fibre LNG has received the Environment Minister's approval, but is still waiting for the Transport Minister to sign its export permits to begin construction. As the U.S. becomes a major energy exporter, Canadian producers need access to Asian markets. Will the minister save the wood fibre LNG jobs and approve their export permits immediately?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Environment.
Mr. Speaker, the Department of Environment and Climate Change and the Minister of Environment and Climate Change approved the wood fibre project proceeding under Canada's environmental assessment legislation. We are working actively with the province of British Columbia to see that project moving forward. As the member may know, there was a decision announced by the company to move forward with an investment decision only 2 weeks ago, and we continue to collaborate with British Columbia and with the proponent to move the project forward.
The honourable member for Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner.
I was elected by people who understand that Liberal policies, especially the carbon tax, destroy economic opportunities and drive up costs for families in my riding. Carbon taxes diminish our competitiveness, they hurt our economy, and negatively impact Canadians who are already struggling to make ends meet. That's right. Will the Liberals finally listen to hardworking Canadians and scrap the carbon tax?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the previous Conservative government had a Democrat in the White House for almost a decade, and they accomplished nothing to address climate change. Now, with a Republican in the White House, they want Canada to continue to do nothing. That's not the approach that we plan to take, Mr. Speaker. Canadians voted for a government that would transition to a low-carbon economy, to stimulate growth, provide access to new markets, and create good middle-class jobs, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
Honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, in July 2015, our Conservative government pledged to invest $60 million in the Quebec Harbour-Beauport 2020 project. This major project is important for the Quebec City economy, and that is why the mayor of our city supports that project. And yet, since this government was elected, we've heard no news from it, not only about 2020, but also with regard to the Foulon Walkway and the expansion of the Ross-Godreau cruise ship terminal. Mr. Speaker, is the Prime Minister trying to punish the residents of Quebec City who voted for the Conservatives? When is he going to support these projects? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that I care very deeply about the Quebec City Harbour. That's where I was born, and it is a very important harbour. We are working on this file, and when we have something to say, we'll say it.
For Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, for many years, the people of the Inuvialuit communities, especially Politak, and the environmental and conservation organization have been advocating to protect the sensitive ecosystem in Darnley Bay, in my riding of the Northwest Territories. I wonder if the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans might update the House on what concrete steps the government is considering to ensure this beautiful and pristine marine environment is protected for current and future generations.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member for Northwest Territories not only for that very incisive question, but also for his excellent work on this important issue. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to inform the House, and my friends obviously are excited as well, that after consultations with stakeholders and our Inuvialuit partners, we have designated a new marine protected area in Darnley Bay, located in the Beaufort Sea. Mr. Speaker, today we're taking important steps to provide much-needed protection for sensitive marine habitat. The new marine protected area will take us closer to our 5% goal by next year.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Leader of the Opposition reminded this House of the 10-year, $100 million investment our party put in place to prevent, detect and combat family violence and child abuse, including funding for Aboriginal women who are the most vulnerable of victims. She asked the Health Minister to confirm that this funding has not been cut, but no clear answer was provided. So again, Mr. Speaker, is this funding still in place at the Public Health Agency of Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to inform this House that, in fact, this funding still is in place and is being used by the Public Health Agency of Canada. I'm also pleased to inform this House that, to expand on that, I'm very happy to work with my colleague, the Minister for the Status of Women, to work on development of a gender-based violence strategy, and we look forward to introducing the details of that in the very near future.
Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was shocked to hear what the Minister and Member for Compton Stansted had to say about the Sherbrooke Airport. It's being delayed again. I hope it's not another case of the good old Liberal policy when they campaign on a priority, but then when they get elected, it drops to the bottom of the list. Government after government, Sherbrooke has been waiting for this to be fixed because it's a question of airport safety. Over 1 year after being elected, will the minister make this a priority at the cabinet table and finally fix it once and for all? Thank you. Well, Minister of Transport. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, there are many airports in Canada that do not have a safety management system, and the Sherbrooke Airport is just one example. We have said clearly that the Sherbrooke Airport can be equipped with such a system, but it would be at the cost of the airport. But it is available to all airports that want it, and that has been our position for some time.
Mr. Speaker, during my conversation with Richmond Hill constituents, mental health repeatedly emerges as a pressing issue that our government must tackle. Many of the challenges mentioned included long wait times for appointments and the absence of local community-based services. Can the Minister update the House with what she is doing to promote and advance mental health services in Canada? Thank you.
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member from Richmond Hill for his important question. There is no Canadian who doesn't have a friend or family member affected by mental illness. Et tous les députés dans cette chambre connaissent.
And all the members in this House know someone who is affected by mental health issues. And we all know that we must do more to make mental health services accessible. I met with my counterparts last month.
Health Accord, I'm working with the provinces and territories to make lasting transformations so that we can better serve the mental health needs of Canadians.
Member for Calgary Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are dying every day from illicit fentanyl. We assume that the Minister followed Health Committee testimony ahead of the opioid study later this week. We were told by the RCMP and Canadian Border Services that almost all of the illicit fentanyl on the Canadian streets is coming from are coming from one single country. Unless we turn off that tap, these deadly drugs will continue to pour onto our streets and kill Canadians. Can the Minister confirm that China is the main source of illegal fentanyl, and what has she done to stop it?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Justice and I
have had a series of consultations with our provincial counterparts. The provinces of Alberta and British Columbia are particularly concerned about this issue. It is a health issue. It is also very much a criminal justice issue and an import issue. We are working on a strategy at the moment to address all aspects of this very serious problem. Fentanyl is a scourge upon this country, and we all must work together to make sure we deal with it effectively.
The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm following up on a question asked yesterday of the Minister of National Defence by my colleague from Courtenay, Alberni. It's about the Shawnigan Lake Quarry, which has been shown now to violate its permits. It was approved for contaminated soil disposal, but downstream, where 12,000 residents of Vancouver Island depend on that for drinking water, there are carcinogens, toluene, chromium, aluminum. The source, unfortunately, is that DND is using this facility for the disposal of contaminated soil from CFB Esquimalt. Will the minister immediately end shipments of contaminated soil to this quarry?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Provincial and territorial governments are responsible for approval, licensing and monitoring of waste management operations in this country. The province of British Columbia issued a permit relating to the establishment of a soil remediation facility in Shawnigan Lake. Environment and Climate Change Canada officials have conducted a review and are monitoring the situation. However, at this time, no potential Fisheries Act violations have been identified. Potential pollution issues and prevention issues should be related to the issuance of the permit, should be directed to the Environmental Protection Branch of BC's Ministry of the Environment.
Yesterday, following question period, the member for Belleuil-Chambly rose to request that I investigate whether a member of the press gallery, as reported on social media, had been prevented from attending a committee meeting. At the time, I undertook to review the situation, and I can now inform the House that a journalist did, in fact, initially experience some difficulty accessing yesterday's meeting of the Standing Committee on National Defence.
On the part of security personnel assigned to the room who believed that the committee meeting in question was taking place in camera. Such meetings, of course, have restricted access.
As soon as security personnel were made aware that the meeting was in fact a public one, the journalist was permitted to attend the committee meeting and observe the proceedings.
Of proper access to parliamentary proceedings cannot be overstated, as it is an integral component of our parliamentary democracy. I can reassure the House that all efforts will be made by the Parliamentary Protective Service to ensure that such an incident is not repeated in the future.
I would like to thank the member for Belleuil-Chambly for bringing this matter to my attention and to the attention of the House.
Dépôt de documents.
Tabling of documents.
Order. Order. I encourage members to take their conversations out into the lobbies. Alors.
Order.
Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36, Bracket 8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's response to 33 petitions.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of International Trade, and according to Standing Order 32.2, I have the honour of tabling in both official languages a document entitled Agreement between Canada and Mongolia for the Promotion and Protection of Investments, signed at Ulaanbaatar on September 8, 2016. An explanatory note accompanies the document.
Introduction of government bills. Statements by members.